Good evening. I'm Dr. Joy Mugambi. I am your host tonight, and my moderator is in the house, Dr. Josephine Ohas, and our panelists, Edith Kwoba is here and part of the team. We've got our speaker, Milka Orlando, who will be introduced later by our moderator, and our team that has been busy organizing these webinars for months now. We've got Lisa Hemba, who's part of the Clinical Psychology Association of Kenya. We've got Catherine Gitao, who's the CPD Coordinator, Kenya Psychiatric Association. We welcome you all as you log in. In a few minutes, we'll do our housekeeping PowerPoint, and then now we'll move on to hand over to Josephine Ohas, who's our moderator tonight. Thank you. Welcome, Milka.
Thank you.
You're on. Thank you. We can hear you.
Okay.
So good evening. It's now 7:05. We will move on with the meeting tonight. Tonight, we are having a great presentation on spiritual health. For the attendees on your end, you have a screen like this that has the chat and the Q&A. If you want to chat with any of the panelists or the presenters, or you want to put down a comment, which is not a question, please click the chat box. It will appear like this. Do put down your message at the bottom there and send it to either everyone if you're appraising the whole team, or click down and a panel will come down that you can speak to one of the panelists on the other end. So on your end also, you have the Q&A section. The Q&A button allows you to drop down a question to the speaker tonight or the panelist, and your question will be answered live, and either you can put it anonymously or you can have your name put down, and we will also throw a shout out to you and thank you for your questions. Over the week, we usually have the KMA division rounds, which have been on hold for this month, but we are resuming on Friday, which is the end of this month. We are starting off with Coast Division, and we'll hear where they are at now and their experience in terms of managing the essential services within their region during this period. We have the we have this as our 15th mental health webinar, and we are excited to be going strong as a team. This team composes of Kenya Medical Association, the Kenya Psychiatric Association, Clinical Psychiatric Association of Kenya, and National Nurses Association of Kenya, and the Kenya Clinical Officers Association of Kenya. We are glad to have partnered together also with KMPDU, and part with also the Ministry of Health, Mental Health Services. Our resources can be found within our Facebook page, which has all these webinars that have gone on in terms of either the Picha Kucha division rounds or the mental health round, and the case presentations which happen on Thursday, which will present as we end this session tonight. The resources are also on our website. You can check them out there and learn more. Thank you. I hand over to Dr. Haas, who's all the way from Nanyuki. I believe it's really cold on your end, but I guess tonight we'll get warmed up by Milka as we learn from her. Welcome, Dr. Haas.
Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you to our panelists and presenter who are with us today. And of course, thank you to our viewers and listeners. We would like to welcome How, which is available to just say hi to us. And then once we are done with the presentations, we'll give an opportunity to our president, will be around, just to address. Is Dr. Catherine in?
Dr. Kigondu is here. He can open for us.
Dr. Kigondu, please say something to us.
Thank you very much, Ohaz and Joy. We want to welcome all to this very important and neglected side of mental health, the spiritual aspect, and we are very excited to see what we will learn from it. I think the spiritual aspect of all human beings is very important, as we all know that life is very fickle. I think all of us may know one or two people, for instance, who have ill health and require psychological support that has been supported through the spiritual angle. And as Kenya Medical Association, we welcome all, and we hope that this will be of benefit to all who listen.
Thank you, Dr. Kari. Now I'd like to welcome our panelists, to introduce our speaker of the day. Karibu sana, Doc.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kigondo. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everyone, for joining and continuing to keep us company for the last several weeks. And we are excited to be hearing from one Dr. Ondo Milka. It's a very, going to say, a very exciting topic. Many times we have the biosocial, but we forget the spiritual aspect of human beings. And today, Dr. Orlando Milka is going to share with a few aspects of that to stop neglecting that. Milka is a graduate of University of Nairobi, where she did both her undergraduate medicine and her master's in psychiatry. Currently based at the Mathare National Teaching Hospital in Nairobi. And when she's not in Mathare, she also gives her service at Oasis Hospital and at Chilomo Medical Center. And I think it's a great to also know the spiritual aspect of life and that of medicine. It's good that when she's not busy sessions, she loves to do crafts. I believe that's of the spiritual wellness. And she's not crafts, she also does beading and knitting. So I think it's very important and interestingly also does both. When she did her research, she has had interest in depression and resilience. We remember about resilience some time back. And she hopes to do some work with children and families. So we'd like to invite Dr. Mila Orlando to go ahead and share with us this exciting story of our spiritual wellness. Especially, I'm hoping people will be excited to see the difference between spirituality and religion, for example, because some people ask, hey, do you want to do spirituality? So Mila, I hope you're ready. Go ahead and start us off on this discussion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kova, for that humbling introduction. Yes, good evening to everyone, and thank you for tuning in for today's session. Going to get my slide on. Yes. Okay, So I hope everyone can get me, and slides are visible to all. So yeah, I'm humbled to be speaking to us, sharing on this topic that is, it's a part of us, but more often than not,
Yes,
we
they are good.
speak of it for one reason or another. But yeah, that's why we're there for each other. And as health workers, I believe that, yeah, just joining in to listening on this topic, we'll deliberate on it and find a way forward that will help us be healthier, in readiness to even serve the health needs of other people. So I will give my talk on spiritual health. It's such a broad topic, but I'll just restrict to a few items that, yeah, we'll talk about tonight, which is spirituality, religion, spiritual distress, spiritual assessment, effects of spirituality on health, and our spiritual work. So when we talk about spirituality, it's a term that, yeah, has a lot of confusion around it, but I'll just put it simply that it's a term that originates from a Latin word spiritus, which means a breath of life. And spirituality in essence is that being human that seeks meaningfulness through inter, and transpersonal connections, that is connection with oneself, with other people, and with another ultra being or a sacred being, okay? And basically all people are spiritual. When you look at how we define human beings, you'll always see a model that is showing this body, soul, and spirit. So yeah, we're all spiritual in nature. And spiritual health in itself is now the balance between a person's lives, values, purposes, and relationships versus experiences. So spiritual health is balancing your spirituality with life experiences. Okay, so it's not so important as what happens to a person as to the meaning they give to what has happened. And that's why we say health is now the balance. You have your spiritual aspect, but how are you balancing it with the life events that come your way? Okay, and I believe as doctors, that is very important for us because we take care of a lot of lives. And when I was young, I used to hear this song singing on the radio so oftenly that used to say, Daktari Mungu wa Pili. I don't know if some of you heard of it. And yeah, later on thinking about it, I'm like, okay, that's the responsibility that the community has placed on us as doctors. And if you're being called God, that means there's a way you looked at as very wholesome, very total. So I pray that as we go through this session, we will see how total we need to be with our health so that we can be fully available for the health of others. So there's this term religion, which sometimes seems synonymous with the word spirituality, but religion in itself is the how people are organized along their spiritual beliefs or experiences in a way that provides guidance for their life. So while spirituality is that personal experience of your relationships with other people and with your superior being or God, religion, on the other hand, is how now you relate, how your experiences with your God and other people merge with other people, like who seem to share a similar spirituality with you. So many people find spirituality through religion, while others find it by just interacting with nature or craft or other things, whether they are principles or values stated somewhere. But wholesomely, everyone finds spirituality in one way or another. So this clip is just to help us see the difference between spirituality and religion. That yes, spirituality is when you're asking questions like, where do I find meaning? How do I feel connected to myself, to others, and to my sacred being, or how should I live? While religion, on the other hand, is just what practices, rites, or rituals should I follow. So that means I'm looking for a group that seems to do things that are similar to what I ascribe to or I approve, so that I can work with them, and then that group will help you see what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is false. So it's possible for one to be spiritual and not religious, and it's possible for one to be religious and not spiritual. But when you're talking about now spiritual health, it's a balance. So you connect your spirituality with other people. So you merge spirituality with religion, which will help you now form a stronger belief, find comfort, because in spirituality, you're looking for that meaning and connectivity. So religion gives you the people, and that feels comforting. The people will help you reflect on the principles you hold in your spirituality, so that you can grow in your relationships even wider, and people will help you to nurture certain ways of living that are acceptable, that make your life more peaceful on earth. So that way you've merged your spirituality and religion. So in essence, some people are spiritual and not religious, others religious, not spiritual, but now the best outcome is seeing both, like your spiritual and religious, okay, in a positive way, because yeah, we'll see how you can be either of them again in a negative way. So the reason why I'm presenting this topic is because when you think of health, initially we had Angel and White giving us the biopsychosocial model of health, but later on, Daniel brought in the issue of spirituality, and WHO adopted this model, which means that when you're looking at someone's health, then you think of their biological needs, their psychological needs, sociological needs, and also spiritual needs for it to be complete. So with this model, then, yeah, spirituality is very part of us, and we need to talk about it so that we have a complete wellness in our lives. So there are different spiritual needs that we go through, or we need as human beings, and I group them in four, like the need of meaning in life, or existential. So you seeking for purpose, for hope, for a balance in life, okay? And then there's the transcendence, where you're looking at, I need connections with myself, with other people, and with my superior or sacred being, so that I have peace. I move around knowing that I am connected, I have peace, I have somewhere I'm coming from, have somewhere I am going to. And we also need values. We want to be respected, we want to live with integrity, we want to feel that we are in control. And that only happens when you know that you are living according to a set of values that are acceptable and agreeable to the other people that are in existence with you, and even nature as a whole. Then there's the need for psychosocial identity. We want to be loved, we want to be forgiven, we want to be associated with in a positive way, which is a great need for all of us, and it's a big asset when you're talking about illness, especially when you're going through challenges, that social identity gives you the capital or resilience to move on from difficulties. So when you lack those, when those needs are not met, then you fall into an illness, like you fall into what we call spiritual distress, which actually is an accepted diagnosis, although currently still under the nursing category of diagnosis. And it's that situation where you feel unable to find sources of meaning, of peace, strength, and connectivity, and you feel that your beliefs are conflicting with what you are experiencing. So it gets very difficult, distressing, sad, and it can be detrimental to your health, both physical and mental. So this spiritual distress can be triggered by many factors. Different people have different capacities of handling life issues, and some of the triggers include traumas, bad news, receiving news that is not so pleasant, anything in life. When a situation you're going through becomes life-threatening, like an illness or those things that don't augur well with our lives or our happy moments. You may find you're bereaved, you've lost something, or you find yourself isolated, like currently with the COVID. There are many other reasons why someone may find themselves isolated. Maybe you're incarcerated, in prison. For whatever reason you are isolated, then you can't connect with your loved ones as freely. So that becomes very distressing, and it can trigger spiritual distress. So whatever you go through, you can tell that you have spiritual distress if you experience some of these signs. There are many other ways you may manifest them, but I'll just mention a few, like being tearful or asking why me, withdrawing from people, lacking interest in things that you usually are engaging so happily. You find yourself restless, angry, you fear even being alone, you have disturbed sleep. Your coping is disturbed. You can't just handle simple change positively. You feel abandoned, you feel sad, sinful, and like, either your God or your significant people have left you, and you also find yourself sort of questioning or rejecting the available therapies that people are offering you, especially the professionals. So in that case, you need a spiritual assessment, and this is not only for someone who feels distressed. It's a good habit for all of us now that we have we are spiritual beings, and when you think about it, we have general health checkups that maybe to a large extent attends to our physical needs of health. So it's also good to just do some routine spiritual assessment of yourself, so that you keep your global wellness. So the spiritual assessment is just to help you get a proper perspective of your own spirituality and to see whether your spirituality or your beliefs are helping you or hurting you. Okay. And you can do it in a structured or unstructured manner. Yeah, when it's unstructured, then it's just like a chat with yourself or with another person who may step in as a spiritual caregiver, just to reflect on life and events, so that you pick out important points and see where you fit on the spirituality thermometer. And the structured ways that are available Actually, you can find them even on internet, on Google. There are tools, we call them assessment tools, that you can check on the computer and assess yourself. They are a variety, like hope, spirit, pick up, just attending to different people's needs, because different faiths are comfortable with different sets of questions. So this just offer a variety of sets of questions. So you pick one that feels more comfortable with you, and when you answer them, you can rate yourself and see where you belong. So as we said that we are biopsychosocial spiritual beings, this biopsychosocial spiritual model of care becomes very important when we are looking at our spiritual wellness or spiritual health. The current view of health care says that humans are biopsychosocial spiritual entities. And so if you have to assist any human being, then you explain or understand and attend to their illness or their discomfort as biopsychosocial spiritual phenomena. So this is the reason why it will be important to actually attend to your spiritual needs, so that you have your complete wellness. So when you're talking about spiritual care, there are a variety of caregivers available to us, and physicians and other healthcare providers are key in spiritual care, because people run to us when they are ill for whatever reason, if they are in need, even if it's just a bereavement, a breakdown, and they run to the doctor. So you are a spiritual caregiver, and so yeah, that's important. That's why it's good to take care of your own health in a global way, so that you are available for another person, so that even when they are talking about a hurting limb, you, by the way you interact with them, you can also pick the spiritual needs. And sometimes when you attend to the spiritual needs or spiritual needs, you find even that hurting limb seemingly just gets healed, because the pain was more or less spiritual or psychological. Okay, so other caregivers include family and friends, because these are the people who help us to identify with religion, in positive religions that can fit our spiritual needs. We have hospitals, chaplains, and imams, and this we can use ourselves as doctors, and also link to our patients as we care for them. We have spiritual leaders in the society, and we also have community leaders. Looking at it, that we are in African settings where we have people understanding their health based on culture. So community leaders are looked at as people who understand the culture of that group. So they give advice or guidance in sort of a holistic manner, which includes spirituality. So they are also a good sort of care, spiritual care. And yeah, some people aspire to traditional healers, so they are aspects of spiritual care. So we are talking about spirituality or spiritual health because studies have revealed that we have benefits of spiritual health. There are many studies that have actually been done. If you check around the internet, you find them. But in essence, spirituality bestows on us that self-esteem and confidence in ourselves and in people around us, and even in our God, so that you feel you are someone, you are alive. Okay. So it also helps us to maximize our personal potential, because when you feel connected, then you feel you can serve, you can interact and offer a lot that you have. So it also improves our relationships. It also improves our purpose. It enhances our feeling of belonging to society, which is a good capital when we're talking about health in general. And it helps us to grieve when we lose whatever it is that we lose, so that we don't break down, we don't get into what we call pathological grieving, okay? And there are times when some problems don't seem to have solutions. We have a continuity of distress or disability. Spirituality gives us that ability to endure all that, so that, yeah, you still move on, knowing that it's not like a hard. You're going through what other beings also go through, and yeah, you get strong about it. So we have those who are positive effects of spirituality, but we also have effects that may be detrimental to health. And this is a point we need to be aware, so that as we attend to our health, we do not overdo or underdo things in a way that now harms us. So we have people who have gotten into religious medical neglect. So they refuse some medical interventions just because of their religion, okay? And we have others who have a destructive belief, thinking God is an angry God. So whatever bad thing happens to them, they really sort of deserve it. So they go through life in a punished way, which is again not good. There are those who have dangerous practices, and for example, there are people who in their religion, they handle dangerous snakes, saying nothing can harm them, they drink poison, and yet we know medically that can really get grave. So that is again a good impact of spirituality. And we have nocebo effects, where someone goes through a life experience that is not so good, so kind, but because they don't believe in spirituality, they, even if you give them spiritual caregivers, they don't really get better because they don't believe it works in the first place. So those are some of the negative effects that may be encountered with spirituality. So we need to beware. That's why I said you do a spiritual assessment on yourself or the person you are assisting, so that you see, as you move with those values and principles that bring you positivity and negativity. So for the many cases of those who have had spirituality assisting them, mechanisms have been explained, and I just highlight a few, which include increased positive health behaviors. It's assuming that those who are spiritual, especially spiritual and religious, that grouping helps them to nurture themselves into positive behaviors. Sometimes you go to spiritual or religious gatherings and they're talking about people listening to the doctors, people obeying those health tips that are being given. So it increases our health-seeking behaviors in a positive way. It's also assisted by social support. Yeah, when you read the stress and the case model, then you realize that when you feel supported, when you feel like you're in company with people who care for you, then there are some hormones and those biochemicals that increase in your body, and they give you a happiness. So in health, generally, we want people to be happy, so that this is them. And there's the coherence hypothesis, which brings in the explanation that when someone is spiritual or religious in a positive way, then they have their lives or their beloved finding an explanation or a definition that seems to be complete. because a human being feels wholesome when they can define whoever they are completely. But when you're not able to define yourself completely, then you find a disconnection, a disharmony in your life, and that is when you get into spiritual distress. So this I call spiritual work, and I mean, like, what do we do? Like, okay, now we are saying spirituality overall is a good thing. So how do we do it? You know, the way you say, oh, how do I physically fit? And like, okay, eat healthy, do some gym work, and whatever it is. So how do you keep spiritually healthy? So I call it the spiritual work. Putting in mind that for positive religions, we have common basic elements, which include wisdom of faith. Those are the writings that guide people who belong to that religion. They also have worship of heart as a communality. That's how you connect to your sacred being. Some do it by prayer, meditation, or whatever method. And they all ascribe to works or code, which is an expected way of living life or handling situations. So with these commonalities, then I came up with these steps that we can follow daily for our spiritual health. And step one is that you identify with your ultimate, okay? Whether it's God or whatever you find is your sacred being, identify with them. Then step two is relate with them. For example, pray, meditate, but connect with them so that you feel your answers. You receive your answers to whatever questions you have in life. And step three, read the creeds or wisdom as stated in whatever religion or spirituality that you are ascribing to. Because for you to understand anything wholesomely, you need enough information about it. So, for example, if you are a Christian, then it will be necessary that you read the Bible a lot so that you get to understand what it says, so that you can relate, whether it's positive for you, negative for you, or what you need to do so that you become a complete being. If you're a Muslim, you're talking about Quran, whatever religion or spirituality you ascribe to, it has creeds or lines of wisdom. Read and be familiar with it. And step three is live by the writings, because at the end of the day, all those writings are asking you to do something. So read, obey, so that you're able to find the ultimate peace. Because remember we said it's not what you believe, but how you connect it with your experiences. So for you to have that complete spirituality, then you need to walk all the 4 steps. So in conclusion, I would say that spirituality is not only about what you believe, but also how the faith or belief functions as a coping mechanism in your life. Define your purpose so that you don't get swayed negatively by wrong beliefs, and assess yourself and refer yourself to professional to help. And if yourself you're a professional, you're able to refer your client to a spiritual professional or helper, so that ultimately you get a wholesome health attended to. And lastly, spirituality is so personal that only you can engineer your wellness. So yeah, those are the thoughts I thought I would share. And thank you for listening. These are some of the references that I used. So yeah, thank you for listening. And you're welcome to contribute more, because I know most of you know so much, so we can share and yeah, get more harmonious.
Thank you, Daktari. Before we go to questions for the group presentation, Doc, Dr. Koba, I think you wanted to say something?
No, I just want first to really appreciate Milka for that really awesome presentation about spirituality. Like I said from the beginning, I think it's an aspect of our lives that sometimes we forget. And just to reiterate some of the things that she said, that really, we really need to have the ability, each one of us, to establish some peace and harmony within our lives. There are many things that are going on with our lives, from our own personal lives, to the work we are doing, to COVID season. There's so much. And sometimes we can just be like on a roller coaster, that we get disillusioned about what we are. And I like the fact that the spiritual wellness is about discovering your purpose. Why are you here today? Why are you a healthcare worker at such a time as this? What value do you bring into this? And when COVID is done, when life is done, what will be said about you, what difference will have made. So I really appreciate that. And just to keep reminding us that we need to purpose to keep in touch with our spiritual wellness by finding a quiet place. In Christianity, we'll call it QT, but in whatever religion you have or whatever you do for your spirituality, you need to get moments, despite the busy schedules we have as healthcare workers, to reflect about ourselves. And that can only be done in a quiet place where you, for a moment, forget the noises of the world, because there are always so many urgent things, and there are all these things that keep filling our train. So that's very, very important. Take time to appreciate the natural world around you. Again, something that reminds us about the ultimate, the higher power, birds singing, the flowers budding, things that make life a bit more beautiful. Because sometimes, especially for us as healthcare workers, we are surrounded a lot of times with misery and suffering. And we can get to a point where we actually get spiritually distressed, and this can lead to other like mental health issues, because we feel like it's useless. Remember what she was saying? Some people get to a point where they wonder, why is God punishing us? Why is COVID here with us? Why would a good God allow that COVID comes at this point? So it's very important that you create time to appreciate the world around you. Take time to be fully present in what you're doing, even at this point. Whether you're serving, instead of looking at the pain, appreciating that you've been given the privilege to alleviate the suffering. That gives you meaning in life. Because like when you're going through this season, when there's so much negative stuff that's happening, you can get lost. But when you say, but I'm here and I want to give it my very best, make sure that these patients don't suffer as much. I think those are things that will give you part of spiritual wellness. Listen to the world, listen to the heart, listen to your body. And that can only be done if you're taking some quiet time. Allow yourself and others the freedom to be. We are different. We will never be the same. We are all healthcare workers, and probably, especially for those of us who wear uniform, we feel like we are together working in the same institution, but we are different. And spiritual wellness also involves just allowing people to be as you allow yourself to be, without comparing yourself with others and wishing you were there, but just enjoying the blessings of good things are your way. So I think that's what I wanted to mention, that it's very important that each one of us is able to create something. And when I was thinking about spiritual wellness, I think one of the best poems, I believe it's the Desiderata, is one of the best descriptions of spiritual wellness, according to me. And I just wanted to read us just the first and the last verse of this. I mean, not many of us are familiar with it, but we forget. And the first verse says that, go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what is there may be in silence. We've said there's so much noise happening. Take time to be silent, enjoy that. And as far as possible, without surrender, be in good terms with everyone. Very important, and I hope everyone can reflect about this. But I love the last verse, that says, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you convinced him to be. That's what we call the ultimate. And it says that whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul, and with its charm, drudgery, and broken dreams, it's still a beautiful world, but sometimes too busy to enjoy the beauty that the world has. Be cheerful, strive, be happy. whatever that means. So I feel like when I was thinking about this, desiderata came to my mind, and I wanted us to, I think I would encourage you to read through it and see how much it's beautiful, how it encourages us. Despite the noise of life, we can still enjoy, and we can still find meaning and purpose in whatever we're doing. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Daktari, for that very insightful talk. So we'll go to our questions. And our first question is from an anonymous attendee. Please clarify about over-religious delusions. I think Dr. Orlando will take that.
Okay. Over-religious delusions. Okay, those are things we find in mental illness, and it's that situation where a patient is, okay, delusion is when you're out of touch with the normal, okay? So the religion in itself is good, but when we are saying over religious delusions, it's because these person's beliefs are now not in tandem with the religion that they ascribe to, because they will be mentioning a particular religion that they ascribe to, but the things they are mentioning are out of touch even with that particular religion. And that's why I was talking about the positive impact of a religion on our lives. So whatever you believe, is it like helping you or distracting you? And if all along it has been helping you and all of a sudden it's starting to distract, to destroy you, then it means something has gone amiss. You are either especially distressed, or if you're just hooked to that particular belief that is out of rhyme with what your colleagues in that religion believe, then actually you are deluded. Okay.
Thank you, Daktari. So second question, we have two questions from Isabella Orege. I think we'll have Dr. Koba answer the first one, and then we can have Dr. Orlando answer the second one. The first question, thank you, Isabella, for the question. Can chronic or terminal pain make one lose their spirituality or religious beliefs? And if so, how do we help such individuals?
Thank you, Os. I think you can lose your spirituality per se, but you can develop what Orlando was describing, spiritual distress, where you become disillusioned. Where you can't, and you're dead, you can't lose your physical. Remember, you're looking at a human being as a person who has a biological aspect, a psychological aspect, a social aspect, a spiritual aspect. So the problem is when you go through pain or suffering, especially when there is no hope in sight, you tend to get disillusioned and start to wonder whether there's a reason why you are going through this. Is there a God in heaven? Is there a purpose? Why are you going through this? So you can get spiritual distress. And the most important thing, again, is ask yourself, how do you make peace? Because we say spiritual wellness is the ability to find peace and harmony, regardless of the circumstance. The peace and harmony is not dictated by what we are going through, but saying that I am going through this probably for a purpose bigger than myself, but looking at it positively, that you have care providers who are doing their very best, you have children or whoever is looking up to you, like remaining very positive. And that would encourage even for patients when they are spiritually distressed, when they are at a point where they have become disillusioned. It's trying to find purpose anyway. And it's not very easy, especially when someone feels God has punished me or God has let me down. It is even like young people who lose a very close person. And some people have totally disconnected even from religion, which was their way of expressing their spirituality. But still, their hope can be instilled even through like therapy of some sort, where you let them see some positive aspect of whatever they are through. And of course, if that can also be done by controlling the pain of this person. Because I'm feeling disillusioned, I'm feeling hopeless because my pain is not taken care of, or my illness is not taken care of appropriately. as healthcare progress, first doing the best we can, humanly possible, but also getting of instilling hope in them and helping the patient or even ourselves to find meaning in the circumstances we are going through. And I've said that sometimes tough times make us better. You see, that's a way of finding purpose and meaning even in the tough seasons that go through. That's how I'd respond to it. And I've seen Dr. Makanyango wanted to comment. Maybe she'll also mention some about that. Thank you.
So I think before we ask Dr. Orlando to answer the second part of the question, we will welcome Dr. Makanyengo to make her comment. Karibu, Dr.
I have just upgraded her. You can repeat the question for her.
Okay. So was there a specific... Hi, Dr. welcome.
Oh, sorry, I just touched the wrong button and it went off.
Oh, it's okay.
Thank you for this very beautiful presentation. And I agree with Milka. This is a topic that is big, but I think this is a good beginning. I just wanted to add that actually spirituality is the time immemorial. You find people have been spiritual, even in the old days, even during the caves, our ancestors many years ago. But one thing is common is that we could add, and maybe that's also another topic for another day, is that spirituality is divided. Not all spirituality is good. The common divisions across all communities is good spirituality and bad spirituality. And what is common is that good spirituality, the emphasis is love, peace, caring for one another, what that Dr. Edith was talking about. But I'm sure we are all aware of negative spirituality, where you find people now tend to look up to certain gods, but you know, the practices, the religion that goes with it is so evil. I mean, including sacrifices and other kind of cultish or evil kind of practices. And that's been since time immemorial to now. So we need to be aware that not all spirituality is good. So as individuals, when we want to talk about wellness, we have to focus on the good spirituality. So I know that's also another topic for another day, that we're going to talk about good versus bad spirituality. The other thing I wanted to say is that my experience, what I've seen is that people, even atheists, even people who don't go to church, do not read the Bible, when times get bad, either they get mental illness or they are in a crisis. For example, 911, the Twin Towers, there was a group of Americans who were trapped, and the building started falling. They saw they were gonna die. And one guy there just said, let's shout Jesus, you know, and they all turned and shouted. Now, unfortunately, most of them died, but the guy who told them to shout survived, and he's the one who narrated the story. So what we are saying is that I've seen when people are in trouble, or when people break down, or people who have never even gone to church read the Bible, when something happens, the first thing is, you know, they express their religious verbal, you know, either Jesus or Allah or something. It comes out. And that goes with the finding that some scientists, I just don't have the facts, but I could find out, they say that we are wired to be spiritual. The brain, there's a certain part of the brain that tends to be active when people are spiritual. Maybe that's a presentation we will give for another day. So everybody is spiritual, whether they think they're believers or not. There's good spirituality and bad spirituality. Very, very interesting. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you so much for that. So we'll go back to our questions, and now the second part of the question from Isabella Orege Is it possible to have an acceptable level of complete healing without religion or spirituality? Dr. Olan?
Okay, thank you, Isabella. Well, in the basic approach, I would say no, because when you're talking about healing, already that's a terminology that is spiritual in nature. So you can't talk of complete or acceptable healing when you don't have spirituality in the picture, because remember, even health itself in totality has spirituality. So if someone is going to find healing, which is more or less a peaceful state, okay, there is the physical wellness, maybe you broke a limb and you've gotten better, but the peace that comes with the new situation that you are in is actually the healing. So when you talk about healing, then spirituality has to really feature in your management or in your connection.
Thank you, Dr. Hari. And then there's one more from Eunice Kamara, and they ask, what is the difference between religion and spirituality, or are they one and the same thing?
Okay, religion and spirituality, I think I mentioned it in one of the slides that spirituality is your personal experience of relating with yourself, with others, and with your God or ultimate being. That's like your personal relationship. But religion is now when more than one people are joining because of their spirituality or because of their belief to move together, to look at their supreme being or God together. So religion means 2+ people, but spirituality is just on one person, the individual. Okay.
I'll give the next to you as well, and also let Dr. Koba tell us something. So this is from Florence Jaguga, who says, thank you so much for your question, Florence. Good presentation, Milka. What's the difference between mental wellness and spiritual wellness? They seem to be the same, so I think the signs of spiritual distress you mentioned mirror those of mental ill health. So mental wellness and spiritual wellness. Did you say, or should I repeat? The question.
You are breaking.
Sorry.
Did you say I answer or Dr. Koba?
No, you said you can answer, and then Dr. Koba can add on.
Okay, so it's the question between spiritual distress and depression.
No, mental wellness.
And?
In fact, drop the question. Sorry.
Sorry, I moved it to the answered. There was, it's Dr. Jaguga. What's the difference between mental wellness and spiritual wellness? They seem to be the same. The signal of spiritual distress with mentioned mirror those of mental ill health.
Okay, thank you. So spiritual wellness and mental wellness, yeah, they may seem the same, she's right, but just think about the model that I told you, the biopsychosocial spiritual model. So when you're talking about mental wellness, then you're combining the psychological wellness, social wellness, and even the spiritual wellness. But when you just say spiritual wellness, then like you've isolated a part of the mental wellness of this person. So mental wellness is a bigger picture. Okay.
Dr. Koba, any add-on?
I think I agree with what Milka is saying, that they are closely related. And I think it's like spiritual wellness is one part of the whole of mental wellness, if you look at it. So that you may have, you think when we look at mental wellness, we are thinking about your emotions, your behavior, the way you relate to people. But here we are talking about how you feel, how peaceful you are in harmony with yourself and with your life. So that your emotions may not necessarily be, you may not be very sad or very happy, but as we describe it in mental wellness, you may be behaving relatively well, but you don't feel at peace. You are not in harmony with yourself and with others. That one aspect is what we refer to as spiritual wellness. So very closely related in many ways, so that even the symptoms of spiritual and wellness would actually be closely related to the signs and symptoms of depressive illness. So they are very, very related in a way.
Okay.
We don't say they are totally separate, but it's possible for you to be mentally healthy, but spiritually unwell, so that you don't have all the other symptoms of mental illness, but you have just lack of peace and harmony with yourself and what your life is about, and you lack purpose, you feel disillusioned.
Thank you, Doc, for that. So there's Dr. Jonathan Nthusi. I think this was more of a comment. Wonderful presentation and deep insights, Dr. Orlando. Whole person care is packaged in all aspects that appeal to all the domains of human learning and living. Appeal to the domain, which reveals a lot regarding people's behavior, attitude, and understanding ill health and therapy. It helps both the individual and those around them. Thank you, Daktari, for the comment. And then now we'll go to Albert Gashau, who asks, would you recommend that a healthcare worker preaches to a patient in the course of their interaction? So at what point should it happen or not happen? And what boundaries should we draw and how close?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, Doc. Did you get the question or should we repeat?
I think I got it.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. So should healthcare workers preach to the patients? I think on that note, I would say a resounding no, because we just said clearly that you don't impose your own spirituality on other people or your own religion. What you're giving is spiritual care, which means you assess this person's spirituality at that level and come up with what are their needs. Then those are the needs you address. If they happen to have needs that rhyme with your spirituality, then you can comfortably walk them the journey, but not even in a preaching manner, but more or less educating them, enlightening them of what they need to know. Okay, so you're offering spiritual care, not necessarily preaching, so that you're not really converting, but you're just empowering, because ultimately the decision is theirs. And says to the boundaries, that's why we say assess their need and respect their spiritual needs, because the need may sound like it's attached to a different line of religiosity or spirituality from yours. It's not your moment of conversion or preach and convert. No, it's your moment of just expanding your healthcare, such that if you're not able to guide them, there are basic ways you just guide them to do their routines, connectivity with their God through prayer, meditation, or reading the creed or whatever it is. But if you find it difficult to address their particular needs, then feel free to refer, so that you don't also get blamed, because in your own spirituality, remember, you have to be at peace with your ultimate maker, and maker has not made you judge, he just made you a helper. Okay.
Thank you for that, Daktari. I think Dr. Makanyengo has something to add on the same. Daktari, karibu.
Thank you very much. Probably to add to what Dr. Milka has said, as a practitioner, sometimes even patients may ask you to pray with them. It's not necessarily that you're preaching to them, but they may also preach to you, and they might ask you to pray with them. So it's good to also listen to them and guide them through their beliefs. But in most facilities, you find there is also religious leaders who you can engage and have them work with these patients, especially in the mission facilities. But you can ask them if there is someone who they would want to engage also in terms of their religious practice. Though there has been a question, and let me take this opportunity now that I've been given the opportunity to speak, to ask Dr. Milka, what about children? Do they have spirituality? Because my senior, Dr. Okilet, has also asked that same question. Do children have spirituality? Can they also be taught how to be spiritual? Is it better to start early, or what do you do at that early age? Then the other question I had is, we have family wounds. Do they contribute to our lack of spirituality? Is this part of an aspect that causes pain on the spiritual health of our lives, or is it part of mental health? Where do we class that?
Okay, thank you, Joy, for those serious questions. Concerning spirituality for children, I would just like us to all remember that that person you're calling child is a full human being. And in that case, they are also biopsychosocial spiritual entities. So even them, they have their spirituality, and that is why for them at an early age, we really depend on their immediate caregivers like parents or guardians to guide them. Remember, I said some of the caregivers include our family and friends, because for this small child, now they're depending on this senior around them to guide them appropriately. Because I think even on media, sometimes you see very young children coming up, preaching, praying, and even saying they're healing. I mean, they also hear their higher being, their maker, their God. So they are also spiritual, and there's no age of starting to introduce a child to information about spirituality. As long as they can hear, you can still talk to them about it, so that they get it earliest possible, and they're able to nurture their way more healthily. Okay. Yes. Your second question was, sorry, Jasmine.
Family wounds. The family wars that bring us apart.
Yes, Joy. You're right. Family issues. Remember, as Dr. Edith was saying, there is the mental wellness of everyone. And this mental wellness really relies on your connectivity, your connections. And family is a very close connection that when it is disrupted, it's a very likely trigger for our personal disharmony. It will give you spiritual distress, and it can also give you other mental distresses. So family disharmony, for sure, it's a potential trigger, and most people actually they become ill because of those family disharmonies. And that is why I think the bill, let me just mention that when we are taking someone through mental care, we usually, apart from just talking to this person, at some point you loop in family or other close people, so that you harmonize their relationships, because that harmony actually assists in their wellness.
Thank you, Daktari. I think we'll welcome Dr. Makanyengo again. She has a comment on the same. Welcome,
Yes,
Daktari.
yeah, I've done some theology, though I've not finished. Yeah, but This is a very good discussion. I thank Milka and the team. I just wanted to talk from my experience. I've noticed there's some patients who come, and as mental health workers, the way you evaluate the patient, there's a way you can ask the patient and actually be able to pick up and see the ones who desire spiritual therapy, yeah? Because a number of patients will come and you need to be sensitive. What I usually do, I tell them that, okay, I find out, how do you usually support yourself in crisis? Or then they will come out and say, I pray, whatever. So now that gives me an opening. And usually I preach biopsychosocial, that yes, I may give you medication, but you also need psychological, spiritual, and social, etc. So they usually get so happy, and some even ask for prayer. So yes, you can actually pray for patients, and it makes a difference. Many will even thank you so much, and I've done that a lot. But you have to be sensitive and careful. There are those who don't want to hear the word God. You talk about God, you've lost them. So there. Then the other thing I want to talk about is children. As small as they are, they are spiritual. People say that babies, have you seen babies looking blankly and smiling at the ceiling? People say that they're actually looking at angels. I believe from the time they're in the womb, you really need to start talking with them, praying for them, and the power of prayer, which goes with spirituality, actually does things, does things that you see happening in your family, in your children, and actually protects them in so many ways. Like now you find society, there's pornography, there's drugs. Right now with COVID, it's chaotic. Like in our church, we're engaging the children right now and engaging the youth. So I think with children, you've got to be spiritual with them from the time they're in your womb. And as soon as they're born, just talk with them, pray for them. And even for the patients who don't want to hear about God in your heart, pray for them. Pray for them. And I think I know top doctors who pray for their patients. Yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Dr. Ohas, please allow me to mention something about the sensitivity. I think it's very important. I remember a client I was seeing, and there was a lot of issues related to unusual sexuality, which I may not want to disclose here just for confidentiality. And interestingly, I referred them to a psychologist. Unfortunately, the client returned and told me, I don't want to go back for psychotherapy because that person started telling me how to get saved and how to go even to their church. And that's what Dr. Makanyango is saying. You have to be very wise to know that there are times when you introduce the aspects of spirituality and you lose a client. But there are times, I recently saw a pastor whose wife had developed a pubertal psychosis. And I'm a Christian. He actually comes to the same church with me. I can tell you, as a matter of fact, by the time we finish the therapy for the care for the wife, he asked me, but why is God in all this? And I knew he was a pastor. And I go to the same church that he goes to, even in a different town. And at that point, I couldn't say, I don't know, go to the pastor, because that's what he wanted answered. So I think it's very important to be wise as you are talking to people about their spiritual issues. You identify who not to mention anything about God because they don't even believe God exists. But there's another person who asked me, so where is God? Why did God allow me? And he actually asked me, I've served God with everything that I have. Why would I go through this? I got married. It was their first baby. Like, this is like a year and a half after their beautiful marriage. And here things are going really wrong. At that point, that guy is open to anything that would encourage him to still hold on to hope, because that's what spiritual wellness is about. And like my first client, who was not ready to hear about God because they didn't even believe that there was a God. So wisdom for us as healthcare workers, so that we don't impose, but on the other hand, we don't neglect a need that would have been met. Thank you. And I'd be happy to hear a psychologist saying how they do this, especially in their psychotherapy sessions.
Thank you, Daktari. I think we have Dr. Liz Hayemba. Daktari, if you could maybe say something about spirituality and psychotherapy.
Well, has been said by Dr. Kova, we also just do the same thing. Basically, we we wait for our client to approach us about their spiritual beliefs or their religious beliefs, and we actually take it up from there. We do not force religiosity or spirituality on a client, because we believe our relationship is actually to help the client from the client's perspective and not necessarily from our own perspective. Of course, if you are spiritual as a psychologist, then you handle your own spirituality aside from the client. For example, if you pray in the mornings, you can pray for your clients. You can, as Dr. Makanyengo has said, you can include God in your practice. But a lot of the times, should you bring up the issue of God during the sessions, or should you bring up spirituality or salvation or religiosity, sometimes you may actually be at great risk of losing your client, because you don't know where the client is at that point in their religious or spiritual practice. They may have even lost their faith, as some are bound to do during their moments of mental health issues. So we go with what the client presents to us. That's what I think. That's how I think we do it.
Thank you, Daktari. Thank you so much. So we'll answer a few more questions and then try and so one question from Sydney Adoli. Thank you so much, Sydney, for your question. And he says, can preaching about prayer as a form of meditation recommended for patients with chronic illnesses that have shown to have better outcomes if meditation is added to the treatment package? And preaching about prayer as a form of meditation that is recommended for patients with chronic illnesses that have shown to have better outcomes if meditation is added to the treatment package.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ohas. And well, I think Sydney has put it well that these meditations, those ways of connecting with one's maker or sacred being really has shown to improve general wellness. So just as Dr. Kova and Liz and all the others have said, that assess the need first, okay? Once you assess the need, then attend to that need. That will give you the speed in which to introduce the spirituality to this person in a way that crafts to what they believe, what they ascribe to. So yes, you can introduce it, because when you're crafting the plan of care, then you've picked out what are the physical needs, social needs, psychological needs, and what are the spiritual needs. So even the spiritual need component needs your plan. So if meditation is workable for them, you will add it. Whatever they will have told you works for them, then you add, and you are, if you are better placed to offer it, you will offer, but objectively. And if you're not better placed, then you assist another professional to step in and offer that care. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. So one last question to Dr. Kwoba. Is there a difference between depression and spiritual distress?
Yes.
And maybe an addition to that is, how can spiritual health professionals be incorporated into the healthcare system?
So yes, so I think it's very important, and Dr. Orlando has alluded to it initially, that if you think about depression, then for us as mental health practitioners, we are thinking about the established diagnosis using the DSM-5. And so depression will have the hopelessness, loss of interest, sadness. It's very well outlined, a clear illness that has clear treatment. But spiritual distress could be just one of the either symptoms in a patient who has depression, or it could be one of the contributors, because when you lose peace, when you lack a sense of direction and you wonder what you are for, then such spiritual distress can actually contribute to you ultimately developing depression. So they are not one, but they are closely related. So that depression has many other symptoms that must be fulfilled for us to say you're depressed, but symptoms quite overlap. Because if you went through a very difficult time, we say the cause of distress, of spiritual distress, is especially when people go through times when they feel like they have lost a sense of purpose and meaning and lack of peace, which could be like trauma. Then in a way, you may only be spiritually distressed and wonder, does God exist? But you may not have the sadness and the hopelessness and the loss of interest that define depression. So closely related, but not the same. But when most of the time, if you address the spiritual wellness, for some people who have depression, the depression might improve, of course, as you manage other aspects of the depression. Then whether we should have religious people in the course of care, that was the question, isn't it?
Yes.
And we do that a lot. Like where I practice, I have actually referred patients to the pastor or to the reverend. In our hospital, we have the chaplaincy, and there's someone who's come and said, I just need to be prayed for. And I don't want to pray for them, not because I can't pray, but because I feel like they also, I want to remain the doctor, and someone else would probably guide them through the spiritual wellness, and I've referred them. Yeah, so we are a team. The same way in care, we have a doctor, we have a nurse, we have a social worker, we have a physiotherapist, and I could do some bit of physiotherapy, but I don't always do it. I refer to the physiotherapist. In the same way, I should be able to refer to a spiritual care provider, whatever that means. And if you don't have, in my opinion, if you feel qualified, like Dr. Makanyango has said, she has been trained and she could feel qualified to be the spiritual therapist, then she should be able to administer that in addition to her psychiatric care.
Thank you, Dr. One final one, and that's to Dr. Orlando. This is from Dr. Mururi Kinganga, who says spirituality and suicide, and then asks, I don't know whether he wants to know the connection between spirituality and suicide. Is that making sense?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You're breaking.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. One last question. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So one last question from Dr. Mururi Kinganga, who says spirituality and suicide. So I believe possibly he wants to know whether there's a connection there. The question is not, well, I'm actually getting the question properly. It's just spirituality and suicide, and then he asks preterm. So I think just an answer, you understand it.
Okay. So, Dr. Ohaz, I think we will assume he wanted to know relationship between spirituality and suicide, and suicide meaning self-murder. Okay. Yes. So, yes, as when you look at suicide, which is self-murder, you're taking away your own life. Then it brings in what I was calling the needs. What are our spiritual needs? And when you look at your whole meaning and purpose in life, then when you miss that, then you're disconnected from your maker, from your sacred being, and that is when you have a wrong belief about your whole existence, then you find yourself turning to wrong methods of care for yourself, including the self-harm. But for someone, as Dr. Kuba had mentioned, for someone who is spiritually well, who is healthy, they will find meaning in life in a way that they understand even what comes after death and what it implies if you can take away life. Because if you're connected, then you are wired to preserve life. So you will not take away, whether it's your own life or another person's life. So it happens. It may happen to someone who is not spiritual, who is not religious, positively anchored in religion. but it may also happen to someone who is suffering mental distress, because you said one of the things that happen in mental distress is that you lose the sort of the values you are holding or the beliefs you are holding. They momentarily seem to disappear to you. And so you make decisions that are not so healthy for you. So that person could be in that trance of spiritual distress and they lose it, or they could be in that trance of mental distress, because when there are sometimes signs of mental illness cause someone to lose touch with normal ways of doing things. So they do those wrong things, not because that's what they want in their heart, but that is what the illness is directing them to do. So it's a whole lot of discussion around suicide, because there are many causes to suicide. Spirituality could be an element, but there are many other causes of suicide, so that it's not just that you lack spirituality, so you kill yourself. There's a lot to it.
Thank you so much, Daktari. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, I hear you.
All right. So we want to say asante sana, Dr. Milka Orlando.
Hello. What? Hello. Dr. House?
Yes, Dr. Somba. Please go on.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I was thinking that maybe you may not give me a chance to speak, but I just want to. You're going to do that, fine. Yeah, but I was going to have some questions here to our presenters, Dr. Milka, Orlando, and all the rest. I'm sure these are very difficult topics, really, and you've done a lot of justice in bringing it for us to understand. The take-home message that I got myself was that the body, as ourselves, we have three parts of the body. We have three parts actually: the body, it's the physical body, and the soul, and the spirit. And as we exercise to make our body strong, we also exercise to make our soul strong, and also our spirit is strong. That way now, because sometimes, a lot of time, we neglect the spirit, but we're too busy making the body strong, and then the spirit we forget, and the soul we forget. So I think the message here is quite clear, that let us not forget about the other parts of the body, because they exist. The soul exists in ourselves, and the spirit is also there in ourselves. As we go around our activities, we have these two other parts that we don't see, but they are there. And that's where sometimes we connect to the rest of the world that we cannot see, the spiritual world, and the world that is out there, the word of God and this thing. Now, as I'm reading some book somewhere, I came at something was called astral travel. I don't know whether, I think Milka maybe can help me on this, that actually our spirit can sometimes, when you can actually travel out of your body and go out, and your spirit goes out in some space somewhere, and you come back, and it's called astral travel. I don't know what is whether really is a myth or is a truth, but many books talk about it. That as I said, there are three parts of the body. They exist in us, and when the body is not there, and then the spirit is released and goes out to other parts of the world. I don't know where they go to, but they go out there. And there are a lot of spirits which are hanging out there. The spirits of the people who have left us, the spirits of our ancestors. They're there, out there living. That's what we believe in. And I think we also have spirits that the Holy Spirit, as somebody said, the good spirits and also bad spirits, and they come from us. So, is it possible, as we keep on reading, that one can actually, in the body that we have today and your life, can actually leave your body in the spirit and travel outside and come back in the morning or whatever time and join your body and do other activities? And I read it's called astral travel. So maybe maybe Milk or anybody else can just guide me on this, and we talk about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Somba, that's a heavy one. Yes, but I hear you. When you're talking about spirits, yeah, we agree that we are all a package of body, soul, and spirit. So this spirit, the way it behaves, really, it's sometimes unexplainable, and people give it all those explanations, and yeah, I can't deny or prove them because it's how you experience your spirituality. So yeah, there are those whose spirits are alive enough to travel and to go to different places, and they have a proof to it. But in my reading, I also found that the researches that have been done, okay, maybe we need to do more research, but the few that have been done, there is seemingly little to this distant spirituality. So like someone is somewhere and praying or doing something in spirit for another who is very far. In most of these religions, that actually happens and they believe it. But in the studies, seemingly research has not really given us good proof on it, and so we encourage people to research around it so that yeah we can merge this. But when you think of the overall truth that spirituality and religiosity has this unexplained but good effect on our health generally, it could be possible that this spirit really travels and does wonders. But then you have to guard yourself so that if you have to move around in spirit, move with a positive spirit, with a Holy Spirit, yes, and not with an evil spirit that distracts. That's why we say check which religiosity you are in. Is it the positive or the negative? Because all we want is the positive one. And there are people who are so glued to the negative for some reason, and they are making it a little spirituality and religion to sound demonic. So we pray for those who have good spirits to intensify their prayers so that we have the whole world held in a positive spirit so that everyone can be happy. Yes, but can
maybe I can just say that it's a difficult topic and the issue, but definitely something, but it needs more time. It needs a bit of research. But otherwise, definitely it's a topic that needs another session. Dr. Sombas, yeah, I'm quite interested in that area. So maybe we'll get Milka to team up and then we'll see what to present on that matter. Yeah.
Thank you so much to our presenters I mentioned before. Thank you to our panelists for, of course, your comments and your guidance in this topic. Thank you for your questions from our attendees. So we've overstayed. This was actually meant to be an hour between 7 and 8. So thank you for your patience. So before we close, I am going to ask Dr. Liz Hayemba to talk to us about our call center. And then after Dr. Liz Hayemba, Dr. can tell us something. We close, and then that will be it for the evening. Dr. Liz?
Well, hi again. Yes, about the call center for healthcare workers. I would request Dr. Joy to put up the numbers if possible. The call center is still going strong. We are continuing to receive many calls from our healthcare workers from all over Kenya. Please note that this call center is for all of us. Anybody who works in the clinical setting, anybody, including the cleaners, the accountants, everybody who's at work and working and feels some sort of trauma, please, or feels like you need just somebody to talk to, even if you're not feeling you're not having a disorder or you're not having a mental health issue, you just need someone to talk to somewhere to distress, we are here. The numbers are posted often, and I'm sure Joy will post them before the end of this session. So once again, our appeal is just please feel free to call. The healthcare center is managed by healthcare workers. These are trained psychologists. We have a psychiatrist on call, and we have clinical psychologists also on standby for when you do need more assistance than can be given by the people providing the resources. So we have a toll-free line, which is what has been posted on the screen, the 0800 720 608. We also have other numbers where you call in, and we are able now to call you right back when you call us, just in case you run out of airtime. So please, we once again urge you to call. We are healthcare workers here providing support for you, our fellow healthcare workers. Thank you, and good night. Back to you, Joy.
Dr. Simon Kigondu.
Yes, I would like to invite members to our various activities, including the Friday night, Pecha Kucha nights. This Thursday, we have maternity practice during COVID-19, led by Dr. KMA of Kenyatta, 2 midwives, and I will moderate. And I think we will also be continuing with these Tuesday psychological webinars, which have been very useful, all of us. I suppose the CME points will be sent on email for those who have registered, and they can be used to beef up. At this point, I want to invite the Vice President of the Kenya Medical Association who has joined us, Dr. Amos Otara. I hope he's online to give us the closing remarks. Dr. Amos Otara, thank you very much.
Okay, Simon, thanks so much. That's an ambush. I've been through the discussion since it started, and I'm really grateful to the presenters. I joined not knowing what to really expect. I thought we'll be having a fellowship because it was spiritual health. But I just thank Melka, you've really done good justice to this topic. It's been very interesting and very nice. And given that I've just learned and felt it that the spirit is actually the form of well-being. And we know this is what health is all about. So a lot of stuff has come out of this discussion, and I think it's really beneficial to all of us as healthcare workers and even to our patients. Most importantly is the effect of positive and negative spirituality, yeah, and how it affects our health and the provision of our services. So thanks so much, Melka, for doing this great job. And of course, the other aspect that somebody really questioned about was how do we, I mean, in the way we've been taught in medical school, we need to learn about history taking. One of the things we ask our patients should be about the religion or the spirituality. Not really to castigate them, but I think it will help us to understand where they're coming from. And for some reasons, we can actually help reinforce and help them in their healing. So this is very nice, particularly these times of COVID and other chronic diseases and many other issues that are affecting us. So on behalf of the Kenya Medical Association, I really want to thank the organizers, Dr. Joy and Josephine Oas, for running this program very well, our presenters and panelists, particularly Milka, and of course Edith Over. You've done great justice to the topic. And I really want to encourage members to keep participating in these events. As Dr. Kigondo has said, Kenya Medical Association is at the forefront Particularly in this, we are in collaboration with the CPAK, the Kenya Psychiatric Association, the Kenya Clinic Officer Association, and of course the NNAK. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure meeting here, and let's hope we keep encouraging each other as we move. Thank you so much, and good evening.
Thank you, Daktari. I think with that, we can close the session. We will see you all next week on Tuesday, same time. Evening, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Dr.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you, Dr. Kova. Thank you.
Bye, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.